Hello artists, we are going to talk about getting our winter looms ready for weaving. First, we're going to finish decorating our looms with our winter scene. We're not going to use paint today just because we want our looms to be dry so that we can add yarn to them today, but you can definitely use markers, Sharpies. The colored pencils also show up really nicely. So here I'm just adding some finishing touches like snow to my tree, shingles to my roof, and just adding some extra shading and colors to my loom. Next, we're going to use this template to make some notches where our warp strings are going to go. There are 2 notches on one side, that will be the top of your loom, and 6 at the bottom. Make sure that the 2 notches are at the top of your winter scene. And you are just going to use a pencil to mark where those notches are, and then you will be using scissors to cut just tiny little snips on the edge of your plate. 2 at the top, 6 at the bottom. Now let's talk about warp and weft strings. We will first add the warp strings to our loom, and if you look at the loom on my desk, the warp strings are these vertical strings right here. These are the strings that you will weave on. The weft are the strings that go left to right. Weft rhymes with left, that's kind of how I remember. And when you weave those weft onto the warp, you usually don't see the warp by the time that it's done. So using this pre-cut light green yarn, the yarn that's in the little baggie, you are going to start out the left top notch. You're going to go down to your left bottom notch. Make sure that it's not loose. You want to pull it pretty tightly. It'll be easier to weave on that way. You're going to wrap around to the back side. Come back out the same top notch, and you are going to repeat that step with the 3 left notches on the bottom. For the 3 right notches, you're going to use the notch on the right up top. I know it's kind of confusing. You can replay this part of the video if you need to. Okay, you'll see it wrapping around the back side, and once you have the warp strings through all your notches, you're going to tie the 2 ends together, tie it with a double knot, and then trim off the extra. Don't cut too close to the knot, otherwise yarn is a little slippery. The knot could come undone if you cut too close to it. Next, we're gonna start to make this look like a tree by adding the weft yarn. We're gonna use this thicker, darker green yarn, and you're going to cut a wingspan of it. Measure a wingspan and then cut it off the rest of the yarn. And you're gonna start by tying all those strings at the top together, just like that. Pull it tightly to pull them together, and then tie a double knot, okay? This will be the top of your tree. Then, grabbing the yarn from the other end, grab the other end of the yarn, and you will start weaving over and under each of these strings, in the warp strings, in a pattern. So I'm going over the first one, then under, then over, then under, then over, then under. And when you reach the end, you can always double check yourself, and then you'll pull gently to kind of tighten your weaving. And it'll also move towards the top as you do this. And then you're gonna weave in the opposite direction, right to left, and you're going to repeat that pattern, starting out the opposite way. So at first I was under that last string, and now I went back over it. And I'm gonna scooch it all towards the top, and now I'm gonna weave left to right again, starting out the opposite way from where I left off. I was going under, now I go over under, all the way across. Pull gently and push them up towards the top. And you will repeat this going over, under, left to right, then right to left, until your warp strings feel very full and it'll feel like you have an evergreen tree in your winter scene. When you reach the end of your row and you're pulling your weft string, just make sure you don't pull too tightly. Your warp strings could kind of squish inward and make your tree a little skinnier than you want it to be. Once you get the hang of it, weaving can be a calm, meditative process. You can sort of tune out as you do that repetitive over-under pattern. And here I sped up the time a little bit and did a little time lapse of my weaving. Try to get as much done as you can today, and we'll talk about adding your tree stump and finishing up our weavings next time. Can't wait to see your work, and have a great winter break.